What's up YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Scales 13. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you my pet comparison of the Pueblan milksnake and the corn snake. Hope you enjoy. So to begin with, we're going to talk about the temperament between these two snake species. So I start off with my Pueblan milksnake, and then later on I adopted the corn snake. My Pueblan milksnake actually doesn't mind handling that much, but I do notice occasionally the animal does get flighty. Now, with my corn snake, the odd thing about this snake is from the day I brought this snake home, this animal has been totally fine with handling and will actually slither up to me where I thought the animal was looking for food and I thought it was actually going to tag me. The animal actually just crawled right into my hand and curled up, which is amazing. And from what I've learned from talking to many corn snake keepers, corn snakes, although they're larger and can be a little bit more intimidating compared to other small colubrids, even though they're not a very large snake at all, these snakes actually do better with handling than milk snakes do. I even talked to a couple of vets that keep snakes, and they said the same thing. Most of the Pueblan milk snakes that come in, they're jumping off of the examination table, and then you got to go down and you got to catch it. Where the corn snakes, they'll kind of sit there and curl around the examiner's arm, and they can kind of just peel them off little by little and do the examinations that way. So when it comes to tolerance, I'm actually going to give the corn snake a plus, because even though both of these species, when raised in captivity, tend to tolerate handling quite well, where they won't be defensive and actually try to bite you or anything of that nature, the Pueblan milksnake tends to run away a lot more, where the corn snake actually seems to come to you for handling as if it actually enjoys it or something. The next thing we're going to talk about is the enclosure setup for these snakes. Now, for the most part, the care of both of these snake species is extremely similar. That both of them will use the same bedding. They like a drier enclosure. I do suggest using some type of humid hide so that way the animal can shed easily. I provide both of these snakes clean water every day in a large dish, so that way if they want to go into the dish and soak for whatever reason, they can. Now, because these animals are offered whole prey rodents, a lot of the times there is a bit of a divide between snake keepers and other keepers, whereas they believe these animals do not require UVB at all. And it is true that these animals don't actually crash and burn from not having UVB compared to other reptiles, such as the bearded dragon and other diurnal reptiles, compared to crepuscular reptiles, where even though they are exposed to UVB, they're coming out in dusk and dawn where the sun is either just starting to rise or just starting to set. However, I do provide UVB to my animals just because I know that it benefits them, and if there is any element of UVB that's offered in nature, if you can, why not provide that for your snake or any of your other reptiles? Because if it's helpful and they're in captivity, why not? You have the animal as a pet, you enjoy keeping it, let's give it the best life we possibly can. Now, as far as their enclosure size, a lot of times you'll see enclosures offered to these animals that are something as small as, let's say, a 20-gallon breeder tank, which is basically a long glass fish tank. However, I do believe that that size enclosure is too small. Now, don't get me wrong, I raised my Pueblan milksnake in a 20 long fish tank, and I have just moved her to a vision cage that's a little bit larger recently. Same thing for my corn snake. My corn snake was given to me in a 20 long, which the animal came in good condition. I'm not going to knock the old keeper for raising the animal in a 20 long tank. However, since the animal is in my care and since I could do more, I put the animal in a vision cage that has a larger footprint. These are considered ground dwelling snakes. If you give a snake the option to climb, it will. So I'm actually going to swap out both of the vision enclosures that I have now for both of my snakes, and I'm going to give them taller versions of those enclosures. The reason I'm going to do this is just because even though they have more horizontal space where the animal will have an easier time stretching out, if the animal is given a chance to climb, that's going to give the animal a chance to have more exercise. Now, granted, you do want to be careful about how high you offer the climbing space, because if you're offering any type of heat or UVB, you don't want the animal to get too close. You don't want the animal to be directly under the UVB bulb. You don't want the animal to get too close to the heat element, burn itself in any type of way. However, if you can provide some climbing space safely for your pet snake, it will help them out a lot. corn snakes are quite larger than Pueblan milk snakes, which means these animals have a higher requirement for an enclosure that has more space. These animals get big. Mine is about 4 feet, maybe a little longer than 4 feet now. What that means is this animal would actually do well even in an enclosure as long as a 4x2x2, which maybe its forever home in the future. But for now, I'm just going to give it something larger than what it has. And I feel like the one issue that we have with snake keeping is a lot of times we see the animals coiled rather than having their body stretched out completely. If the animal is able to stretch its entire body out and get some exercise, that's better for the animal's skeletal structure, its circulation, and its digestion. I personally believe that we need to give snakes quite a bit more space so that way they can actually get more exercise and stretch. Now let's talk about the diet for the Pueblan milk snake and the corn snake. So these guys both have a very similar diet. For the most part, the majority of keepers that keep milk snakes and corn snakes are feeding them rodents. Whether they're live or frozen thawed, that's the majority of what these animals are eating. Anything from mice to small rats. Now, my suggestion also to those who want to add different nutrients to the animal's diet, I would mix in some different things in there if you can. Now, the thing about small colubrids that people tend to miss is when they are small, they're actually feeding on insects. They're not feeding on rodents from a very small age. And even when they become adults, that tends to be a smaller part of the animal's diet. These animals, especially in the warmer states, will feed more likely on lizards, and frogs would actually be a very large part of their diet. I don't know if you guys have ever seen other small colubrids such as garter snakes in the wild, but 9 times out of 10, if you run across a garter snake near a body of water, it's feeding mostly on amphibians. It's not really feeding on mice or other small mammals that often. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can actually buy feeder lizards or feeder frogs or whatever's available on the market if that's what you want to do. Or you can buy Reptilinks. What I like about Reptilinks is they already make these little sausages that are made out of the ingredients that you would want in the animal's diet that are more similar to what it would find in its natural environment. Corn snakes and milk snakes are very popular, and they have been bred in captivity for a very long time. You can find normals of both species. You can find morphs, if that's what you're into. There is a wide variety of these snakes, and they're all readily available all around the country, especially for the fact that a lot of the times milk snakes and corn snakes can be found all over North America. So the laws aren't necessarily that strict when it comes to owning a milk snake or a corn snake in the majority of the United States. However, always check your laws before you bring one of these animals home. If you're ever going to buy any animal, try to find a reputable breeder who specializes in that species to buy an animal from. Reason being is because you just wind up getting a healthier animal rather than an animal that's been sitting in some type of box store and may have been forgotten about or not taken care of properly by the staff. Let's do a recap on the Pueblan milk snake and the corn snake. So, if you're looking for an animal that has a better temperament when it comes to handling and will actually seem to enjoy handling, the corn snake's got to beat there. Both of these animals need a pretty large enclosure size compared to what the care guides are usually giving us as far as what they need for their required space. However, the corn snake is larger. So if you can't provide a very large enclosure, a milk snake might be better for you. When it comes to diet, both of these animals eat the same thing and they'll eat in the same frequency. So there's literally no difference between the two animals there. And when it comes to availability, that's also a tie because both of these animals can be found all over the web. There's a bunch of breeders that breed corn snakes and milk snakes all over the country. You guys are probably wondering which one of these two snakes is my favorite. Well, when it comes to the milk snake, in my opinion, they have more striking colors and they have a better looking pattern as far as an animal that you want to look at within an enclosure. However, if you want a snake that's bigger and something that you want to hang out with that isn't a python or a boa, the corn snake's got to beat because these animals have a much better level of temperament when it comes to handling, where these animals will seek you out for handling sometimes, whereas the majority of Pueblan milk snakes are going to take longer to get used to handling because they are naturally a more flighty snake. Alright guys, well I hope you like my pet comparison of the Pueblan milk snake and the corn snake. Everyone have a great day. Peace.